We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Hello, Mavs fans. Welcome to, this is supposed to be Pod Maverick After Dark. Pod Mavericks game recap tonight. I am not joined by Josh Bowe. I am joined by Mavs Moneyball contributors Sudarshan and Michael. How you boys doing tonight?
Doing great. How are you?
Pretty good. Sudarshan, what time is it where you are? This is important to me.
It is 8:50 in the morning.
So you started off your day with a win, though we're going to get right to why that win was a little goofy. So
Yeah.
Sometimes it's good when we don't go immediately live after the game, because my immediate thoughts sometimes, because I wrote the recap too, my immediate thoughts, even if they win sometimes, are like, fuck. Because like the ending of that game sucked. The Dallas Mavericks won against the Toronto Raptors, 125-118. And the important part here is that they won. They are now second in the West. They have won 16 games out of 24. And when I think big picture about the holistic sort of what do we want the Mavericks to do this year, starting 16-8 and being second in the West rules. Is that a feeling you guys have?
It does.
100%.
Okay.
I think
wanted. Oh, sorry, Sud. I was just going to say I wanted 16-8 a few games ago as this thing was playing itself out. Like that was kind of, I don't know, that 2/3 equation kind of a thing. This is a sort of rough schedule. I know a lot of people, and statistically it is a quote unquote easy schedule in December, but a lot of travel, a lot of, game every other day, that kind of a thing. And you're bouncing around from city to city. Even a stop in Dallas doesn't feel like much. You know what I mean? It's sort of another road game in a way. Way back in the day, Don Nelson said something about that when you have 2 or 3 road games, come home for one and then go on the road again, stopping at home almost feels like just another road game. It's just another city. And I feel like we're on that sort of in hyperdrive for this last couple weeks and the next couple after it,
Sudarshan, you noticed that because you actually caught the Brad Townsend article.
Yeah.
What do you think about what the Mavs had to say about all this travel?
I think they were trying to play it down. I think what Townsend had actually written was they didn't actually bring it up until Jason Kidd was actually asked about it, which is, I'm sure things would have been different if the Mavs were not 16-8 and were more like 12-12. I'm sure the aspect of this much travel might have played more into the narrative. which, I mean, I guess you can ignore the craziness or the unfairness of scheduling in some sense if you're winning.
Yeah, and it's such a funny thing now that I'm thinking about it. Like, that's like the classic media question from the media guy who's tired of traveling to be like, aren't you guys tired too? It's like they're kind of doing a different thing here. So I think it's best to talk about this game in two chunks. I say we talk about the first 33 minutes or so of the game where the Dallas Mavericks really truly pummeled the Toronto Raptors, and then the last 15 minutes of the game where they tried not to die. And that way we go ahead.
No, it actually, the one thing that struck me is that it shows how far we've come from, from the point where Luka was drafted and all of these things where we're talking about the quality of wins rather than just, we just pulled it out of our ass and we won. That's it. So we're actually commenting, that they're not playing consistently enough through the game. They're not doing any one of these things. And we're not like, oh my God, we just won. That's it.
Well, the first quarter was a little dicey. The Mavericks looked a little road weary. And then all of a sudden, Kyrie Irving happened, where Kyrie Irving scored 15 points in the first quarter, went 4 or 5 from 3, 5 or 6 from the field, and looked like the best player on the court, which you just love to see. Because I think I was reading some statistics in the pregame show that Kyrie's not exactly had the best road start to the year. And the last game against the Grizzlies, he was a little goofy. No, it wasn't the last game. That was the last close game. So it's just sort of nice to see him get going. And then he didn't shoot a registered field goal in the second quarter or most of the third quarter. Now, he did get to the line, so he did take some shot attempts, but it was very odd to see there. And so the Mavericks ended up starting the first quarter 35-28. It was a fun first quarter, but you sort of wondered how the Mavericks 3-point shooting would survive because they were 6 of 13 from the floor, and that felt like the only thing really giving them a boost. I feel like the second quarter, which I didn't get to see all of on my computer, I had to watch some of it on my phone. The Mavericks sort of inched ahead, kept the lead at about 10 to 14 points. Then I feel like they got it as high as 18 points, and it looked like they were about ready to blow the Raptors off the floor, only for them to have like 2 or 3 shots in the final 2 minutes of the half. And then Toronto cuts the lead to 13 points. And it felt like the momentum had sort of shifted a little bit. Grady Dick was, playing out of his mind. And then Luka Doncic does the Luka Doncic thing where he heaves a 35-foot runner. And I mean, it was really, it got registered as 35-foot. I feel like he was right near Jason Kidd on the sideline or the Toronto Raptors coach.
That felt way deeper, man.
It's the sort of shit we see him do on practice. And of course, one finally goes in. Which I think is pretty fun for him. So the Mavericks took a 16-point lead, 70-54 into the half. And at that point, you're thinking, all right, this is nice. This is a good cushion. The Mavericks can play with cushion. Luka was really on fire from 3-point line for the first 30 or so minutes of the game. I mean, he finished with 30 points, 13 rebounds, and 11 assists, which is, of course, his second straight triple-double and also hilarious.
He's still 6 of 13, so it's not like he shot badly in the second half.
Just shot. He took a couple where I'm like, buddy, and we're gonna get to those. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I'll hold my tongue for now.
The third quarter begins, and they built and lost a 24-point lead not once but twice, where they get up to 24 really quickly, and it's like, all right, we're going to beat. I said something in the playback that I was watching where I said, you know what? I think the Mavericks should try to score 160 points so that we can say that we beat 2 Eastern Conference teams by scoring 300 points in 2 games. And that was really exciting in terms of where the Mavericks were heading. And they lost the lead. They got it back again just because Kyrie and Luka and everybody was just playing so well. And then it's kind of like the 3-minute mark of the fourth. And I don't have play-by-play up, so somebody can sort of can stat check me and tell me that I'm wrong. Luka took a contested floating to his right fadeaway three, and everything after that shot is, for me, and I could be misremembering, for me, felt terrible.
No, yeah, the Raptors went on like they scored like 13 straight points or 14 straight points heading into the beginning of the fourth.
Because it was 100-76. It was 100, and I remember this clearly. And then all of a sudden, they're walking into the fourth quarter, and it's 100-87. So it's like, boys, what are we doing here?
You know what I think part of it was for me anyway. During that run, there was a sequence of plays where Luka was getting bodied up, and I think was objectively being fouled. You know, not sure. Totally hacked, but certainly fouled.
Body bumps and such, yeah.
Yeah, at least to the degree that if that was happening to LeBron James, James Harden, like they're getting that call. You're bodying up, bumping a guy 30 feet away from the basket and knocking him off kilter, and he wasn't getting those calls. But what I think his big mistake was saying, all right, well, I'm just going to score on you now. And when he does, and when he sticks it to you, we're all thrilled and we love that. When he doesn't, the other team goes on a 13-0 run, and it was very frustrating. Look, Luka had a fantastic game. Back-to-back triple-doubles, second fastest to, I think he's got 300 games with 20 points, 5 assists, 5
He has more games with those stats than he does without them. Isn't that right?
I mean, think of how many players in the league don't have 300 of them in a career. It's absurd, you know? So I don't want to make this a Luka bash because it's not.
No, he was amazing, and he played pretty good defense for a lot of the game too.
I think he had 4 steals, and they were not fluky steals, man. They were earned steals, but that stretch, you know, it was just a lot of one-on-one. I'm gonna make my point because I'm not getting a call, and he never made his point. And they went and scored every possession. Like it was like Luka missed, they convert. Luka missed, they convert. And 13 points down the drain just like that. And then it became interesting for the fourth quarter.
And interesting.
No, the Raptors play physical. They play hard. I think you mentioned it in the playback, Kirk, where, you know, it's one of those things where last season they would probably get away with a lot of this stuff. But this was a bit of a throwback to last season in terms of how the game was called. I'm sure if we had Ben Taylor on the call or something, we'd have, I don't know, like 80 free throws or something like that.
Well, the first half, you're the one that pointed this out. The first half was actually really fast, and there weren't that many fouls. And then the game ended up with 38 fouls called, which is not an extraordinary amount, but it certainly slowed the game down in the second half. So it was just kind of an odd showing. And so I wrote in my recap that if you don't believe in momentum, and then this was a game where I would show it to you, because the Mavericks had momentum, and because of a few sloppy plays, the Raptors took it from them, and the Mavericks simply never got it back. I mean, they won the game. So that's the only thing that matters. But if this game were 3 minutes longer, I sort of wonder what would have happened. Because the Mavericks just they stopped, and this is the Jason Kidd of it all, where we collectively, I sort of have moved away from Kidd talk because he's not going anywhere, and I think big picture he knows what he's doing. But there's moment to moment stuff where you watch him standing there, it's like, what the fuck are you doing? Just like do something, like call a timeout, call a timeout with a decent play that gets the guys a good look, and get them to settle down and lock in defensively. You know, the Mavericks were just flustered from the entire fourth quarter on, where the lead goes from 13 points. And then by the middle of the quarter, it was 6 to 8 points from 5:30 until 1:30, when Grady Dick finally breaks the 6-point barrier by hitting a 3, and the lead goes to 5. And the Mavericks were not running stuff. They just weren't. They were like, all right, let's see if we can get out of here. And that's as a team, because Luka didn't play the first 4 minutes of the fourth as the lead started to really started to grind down. He was out there during the first part, but it was also on the rest of those guys that were out there starting the fourth, where we got a whole lot of let's just say mixed bag Spencer, because Spencer still got to the line 8 times. So I don't want to act like he had a bad game. He didn't. But it's just one of those things where you're watching and going, God, are they going to do anything differently? Or are they just going to try to hold on and get out of here? And it's wild to me that the answer ends up being, let's just hold on and see if we can get out of here, which is what the Mavericks did. Derek Lively with a real cool block that was initially ruled a goaltend. And then I think Luka did hit a pair of free throws down the stretch to help ice it, and so did Lively, hit 1 and 2. And the Mavericks just kind of walk away. They walk away with one, and it's like the person who tagged me on Twitter who was like, let's just enjoy this. They're second in the West. That's actually the right take. Actually the right take. But at the same time, I just have to wonder where it's like, man, I really thought they were going to have 2 kind of dominant statement games in a row, and they didn't.
The one thing I would say, though, and I kind of had, I found myself a little more frustrated in this one, where it was, I expected kind of the same, especially after the first half. But as I sort of reflected on it, like you said earlier, where you're almost kind of glad you don't jump right on the pod, you can kind of decompress, you basically played an 8-man rotation. Grimes didn't have a great games. Prosper played for a little bit. So you almost can kind of combine them into one guy. I think Prosper got 10 minutes or something like that. But you sort of had an 8-man rotation, no Najee, no Maxey. He's struggling, but, still a body. We had a few guys missing. And, we talked about the road war and all this kind of stuff that we're going through. And I will say at the end of the game, it didn't feel like we escaped. The Lively block, the Lively jump ball, the Lively hit 2 free throws before splitting them a little later in the game. And he didn't have a great game, but in the last 3 minutes, he was a big difference maker. And I felt like we locked in just enough that we sort of earned it as opposed to escaped. That was my perception of it. Just kind of,
I like the take, because I quite literally wrote on the Mavs Moneyball recap, Dallas Mavericks escape. So the fact that you see it differently, I think, is nice, and I think it's a fun way of framing the performance, and I hope you do that when you write your grades and say, just disagree with me. That's a good way to go about this, because I think the glass. I am a throw the glass against the wall type fan, not even half empty or half full. I'm just pissed. Is sort of my baseline. So I like that framing. I think that's something. Okay, I got to take a break here for our sponsor. Guys, good news. Josh Bowe finally got his body spec scan done. I'm really excited to talk to him about it. Nice. Guys, for those of you who don't know, Body Spec is our first official sponsor here at Pod Maverick. They approached me a few weeks ago, and I think they're a good fit, because as a 40-something man, I'm exactly 40, I'm constantly trying to get my life together, because I would like to live past 40. And a DEXA scan is a full-body composition scan which helps you understand what's going on with your body. Whether you're a person with a desk job like me, an aspirational athlete, you want to be a weekend warrior and start playing some hoops in the weekend, a DEXA scan is a great way to learn more about where you are physically. Head to the show notes and click the bodyspec.com link. It's specifically designed for us here at Pod Maverick. And you know what, guys? I can see that a lot of you are visiting, which is fantastic. But what you're not doing is you're not using the special promo code, which is where is it here? I wrote it down. I have my banner. It's PodMavs45. It's all caps, PodMavs45, where you can get $15 off your scan. It's a great idea for a gift. It's a great idea to help you jumpstart maybe your New Year's resolution. Body Spec's competitors charge as much as $150 for a scan like this. You'll be getting real usable information for a great price. Again, visit the bodyspec.com link in the show notes and use the code PodMavs45 at checkout. Josh and I are looking forward to talking to you about our various experiences. He went to one of the mobile stations near his house, and I went to the actual physical building that's here in Dallas. And they're all over the place. If you go and you look where they are, it's really kind of surprising. I was surprised about how many there are and how easy it is. Okay, I'm going to insert some ads for Blue Wire, and then we will be right back.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Whether you're ordering wings for the game, whipping up a 7-layer dip, or ordering pizza, there's something about football that makes you want to eat. And this football season, Uber Eats has the best deals on game day food. No matter what you're craving, from 2-for-1 pizza to buy one, get one wings, Uber Eats will be dropping new deals each week, all season long. Uber Eats, official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details.
Okay, welcome. Thanks so much for dealing with my nonsense on the business side of things. While I am begging and cajoling, I recommend that you subscribe to the Pod Maverick YouTube channel, that you subscribe to our podcast if you haven't actually done that as well. You know, it's very fun. I did the I mentioned this the last show, but I got a Spotify Wrapped, which only shows Spotify listeners for the podcast. And it said in terms of people who use Spotify, we have people from 75 different countries around the world, which that was just really cool to me. So I'm pretty excited about that. And I would like for more people to be listening to the show. We got about 10, 12 minutes left. What do you guys think? What else should we talk about here?
I think previewing the OKC game is
let's finish with that. But I think we have to. Right. Is Najee Marshall alive? Is and how important is he to this team?
Yeah, I'm a big Najee fan, man, and I didn't know what to expect in the offseason. You know, I wasn't watching Pelican games over the last few years with any, habit. I guess I saw him the handful of times that we squared off against them and whatnot. But I got to say, man, the thing that makes me think the happy thoughts about our wings, I think I've said this on the last pod or somewhere in the Mavs Moneyball universe, when we had Finney Smith and Bullock, those guys, with all due respect, could not dribble the ball. They could not drive. They could not dribble. If they got the ball at half court and tried to take it over the half court line before the 8-second penalty, it was like you held your breath. Just having PJ, who I think has developed his game over the offseason, because I think he's a better ball handler than he was even last season with us. And Najee, I said it before, he reminds me a lot of like an Antoine Jamison with these crazy little drives, like a nice strong body, and he just finishes those crazy little flip shots, and they always feel good. Like he just feels good. And then hitting the threes, man, he seems like he's a big part of this team. I was sort of surprised he was out. My wife told me earlier than I even realized, Najee's not playing tonight. And I was like, what is this guy?
At least he's with them. At least he's with them.
I was very happy to see him on the bench. And I heard that he was part of like the pregame warm-ups at least. So I'm hoping his return is imminent. Mm-hmm. But I'm high on him, man. I'm loving this guy, and I think he's a huge part of what this team is.
So the reason I bring him up in a game where he doesn't play is I think in the final 13 minutes, they were missing someone else doing something creatively off the dribble. I felt like there was a lot of stagnation in the final 15 minutes of Dallas offense. Now, you can blame that on anybody. I don't really care who you blame it on. But the fact of the matter is they were a little lethargic, and I think he gives them a little bit of an extra zip. I think he also happens to play very well with Quentin Grimes. And Grimes only played 17 minutes tonight and was over 2, kind of a non-factor. I mean, not kind of. He was a non-factor. And it's just that the way the pieces all fit when these guys are healthy, I think is something we haven't been able to contextualize properly. And, you watch a game like tonight, you hear the Mavericks are 16-8, second in the West. And you also understand that we're sitting here nitpicking stuff because we think that they can be a lot better. And if you're trying to put a glass half full approach to that look or to that type of discussion, I think that's actually pretty cool because I think Michael in particular is a longtime Mavs fan. The 2007 Mavs live in my brain. The 2006, 2007 Mavs. Here's why. They won 67 games. At one point, they had a stretch where they went 52-4, and they peaked too early. And if there's one thing I really have confidence in Jason Kidd about, it's that I don't think he will allow his team to peak too early. Sometimes I feel like he hits the difficulty button on the season to see what the team will do. Tonight's probably a good example of that because I don't think he did a very good job coaching. But the optimist in me sort of has the wonder if that's by design to be like, all right, these guys have to figure their own shit out. Is that a crazy take?
No, that's a great take.
It's fair.
Man. Yeah. Go ahead, Sudarshan.
No, I mean, I mean, on the bad coaching bit, I think we discussed it in the Slack where, he went into 4 minutes in the fourth quarter with 4 timeouts where and he actually lost one on the use it or lose it ones, right? So
I missed that. He had 4 timeouts.
Yeah. So
an asshole. I swear.
So I was following it on the graphic, where they were going into 2 minutes or 3 minutes, and then it just went from 3 to 2, and he didn't use it at all. So I think the point where it's acceptable is that he's doing this in games that it's a little more comfortable, that we're going to pull it out in some sense. Mm-hmm. And this isn't Kessler Edwards against the Suns at home. This is, you're experimenting in a more comfortable situation, which is where I think, the whole discourse about Spencer in the Miami game sort of came about. It's about knowing when to sort of push those buttons. So, I think doing all of this testing, it's very Belichickian in some sense.
Sure.
Well, so actually knowing what one, like we wouldn't know that Omax actually can provide some positivity and some energy, at least if necessary.
Quite honestly, like you got very frustrated with him in the first stretch of minutes that he played because was it you who said he plays at 1.75 speed?
Oh no, I saw that tweet on my timeline.
Fantastic. Such a good descriptor. And it's like I occasionally walk into my wife listening to podcasts fast and I'm just like, what are you doing? What unholy noise is this? And that is how he plays. And tonight he was there was a lot of all of him. Like he hit the big corner 3. He had a big block. He's such an interesting man defender. But you stole some minutes for him when the team needed some, because somebody said in the chat earlier said like Kyrie or Kidd doesn't know what to do without Maxey. I don't think that's entirely accurate, but I do think there's something to it. So figuring out ways to get minutes for a guy like him is pretty important. And it's again, that's why I like talking through these games after the fact, because otherwise I harp on the minute, like not the things that, because all these things are variations of important, but I think that sliding out with a win is obviously the most important thing. And that they found a way to sort of pull up from the tailspin just enough is where I'm settling.
Yeah. And just to add to what both you guys are saying, kind of marrying those 2 points, I'm a little bit of I almost have a video game mentality. You know what I mean? Where I'm like, look, turn off fatigue, run the 5 starters, and, just win every game. NBA 2K, we're going to go 82-0, once you figure out the trick. And that's not reality, obviously. And sometimes I feel like that, where I'm like, look, just win the damn game. Stop making it complicated. Mm-hmm. But Kidd, I'm a big fan of Kidd too, and I've more so defended him than not when it comes down to it, even in the sort of down years and stuff like that. But I think tonight's like a really good example. Omax, that's a great point, playing at 1.75 speed, but he didn't have a quick hook. And, that block, that chase down block, he pretty much started from half court, covered a lot of ground and made a hell of a block. There was the one play that I think it was the first time he touched the ball. He was out near half court and kind of ended up in like this double team trap, broke through it and drove to the hoop. So it was kind of like, he has this like energy. He has this sort of vibe about him that doesn't quite fit the NBA yet, but those are a valuable 10 minutes. When you've got a short rotation, you got some injuries. He played him at the right time. He's sort of back home, quote unquote, in Canada. I think he's Montreal, not Toronto, but whatever. He kind of just found the right spot to get him 10 minutes of burn. It was a pretty good 10 minutes. He had, I think, 3 offensive rebounds. One of them was huge, came out of nowhere. So, like, there's a lot of potential there that I don't think is fake. You know what I mean? I think it's just I think the rawness of it just kind of has to get refined. But it was nice to see him. It was nice to see a coach kid moment that can frustrate you between timeouts and the rotations, and Powell and Gafford were on the floor at the same time at one point, kind of these weird little things. But it's like, you start seeing like, hey, maybe this might start paying dividends at some point, down the line. And I think that can't be overlooked either. You know what I mean? I think there's some wisdom to what he's doing with those kinds of things.
Well, I do think we should bring it back to the last or the thing Sudarshan said right after break, which was a brief look ahead to the Oklahoma City Thunder game in the NBA Cup. I wonder how much they want to win this, because I think, in terms of pulling out stops and putting things on tape against one of your Western Conference rivals, I wonder how much they value the win and the potential to get money for some of their back end bench guys, an extra $500,000 or whatever it is. I wonder how much they value that versus not showing too much of their cards against a team that they'll probably have to play in the playoffs.
I mean, to be fair, Oklahoma City is extremely well coached. I don't think it's a matter of holding back or like trying to hide anything. The Mavs offense or the Mavs defense is what it is. I don't think it's one of these things that there's tricks and all of those kind of things that you can hide in these kind of scenarios. So I think it's one of those matters where you just go all out and try to win it as much as possible, because they're like you said, they are the main rivals in the Western Conference, right?
Right. Why do you climb the mountain? It's because it's there. So you sort of have to hope that the competitive juices get to working on these guys because they want to. That's right. Sort of where I land as well. What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of echoing back to just what we were talking about with Kidd and stuff like that. I feel like the team's mentality is on the bigger prize, and I think this is nice. And I think I sort of view the whole NBA Cup as, I want to win regardless. You're playing Oklahoma City, even better. I want to really win that game, that kind of a thing. And I think the sort of secondary stuff, if you could almost call it that, or maybe better said, it feels like the Mavs maybe think about the Cup as secondary. You know what I mean? Where if we just go out and do our job, all right, maybe we play that 83rd game. Maybe we get to the finals of this Cup thing. Maybe we bring it home and get a payday for a few guys. But I kind of know what you mean. I don't think it's necessarily the primary driver. I think there's something in the culture that's saying, we've got the eye on the bigger prize. This is nice, but we're going to go out and do the best we can, just like it's any other game in a way, but any other game against OKC, which is more than any other game.
I like it.
We've shown that regardless of whether we have Luka, whether we have Kyrie, we're a match for them. So, particularly with the playoffs, with the win earlier in the season, and this is on the road. So I think it's just a matter of continuing that. And in some sense, imagine a win against them also allows the Mavericks to live a little bit rent-free in their head. So there's the possibility that it sort of builds that kind of trepidation, saying that, we just lost the series, we're down 2-0 in the regular season. You never know what actually is something that matters when it comes to later in the season. So
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay, guys, I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day or night to join me on this show. I'm going to hang around and do Mavs Party next, but do you guys have any closing thoughts, or should we just get out of Dodge?
My one closer was on Lively, and I don't mean to bring the negative. I just thought he had a funky game today. Like I don't want to say it was a bad game, but it was one of the few times I feel like he was out of sorts and almost low energy.
Pirtle is the kind of big to frustrate him because Pirtle keeps coming regardless of whether he gets destroyed or not.
Yeah.
He challenged a couple of Lively dunks that multiple NBA award caliber centers would make a business decision on. And I think that Lively's a bit of a momentum player himself. And it's like when he's not jacking down dunks, it's a little bit. I do think you're right. His energy was odd, but he kept playing. He got that big block at the end. I love that. But the box score line doesn't really do him. 7 points, 6 boards, 2 assists, 2 blocks. So kind of light work for him.
Yeah, and to end it on a happy note, and I do mean this, I think the outcome of this game could have been very different had he not had the last 2 minutes that he had. You know what I mean? I think it was that important, and it was nice to see on a very odd night for him to kind of still stay the course. Kid trusted him, kept him out there, and he made some big plays when they counted, and that was great.
That's right.
It'll be interesting to build on Michael's point. To see how he plays against someone fairly similar in Hartenstein in the next game.
Very interesting. Great measuring stick game for him because that's where Chet frankly got taken out of it in the playoffs, where Lively was so high energy that he eventually just wore Chet down. I think that mattered. So, well, this is great, guys. You guys have been wonderful. I once again thank you so much for joining. I'm going to kick over to the other show. If anybody wants to come join, I posted that link in the comments. If there's not anybody that wants to talk, I'll just go watch TV with my wife and enjoy my weekend. But everyone, thank you so much. This has been a whole lot of fun. Everyone, be good and go Mavs.